Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in about 7 minutes. The weather is a little tricky this morning, so if you can have a little patience, we'll start soon. Thank you. I didn't really want to quiet the audience, so please continue to talk. Just want to be respectful, but also get everyone past security so they have time to park and all that. But we want to say thank you for everyone for being here today. And I just heard great news that we're live streaming this into Houston, um, Illinois radio, Springfield. So there's a lot going on. Many of us couldn't make it. Some of you may know that we also had a press conference in 30 Rockefeller Center last Wednesday in New York City with Mayor Adams' team also. So thank you for being here. We'll start soon. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Liu, and I'm the CEO for the Chinese American Service League, or many of us known as CASTLE. And I just want to welcome everyone to today as we release the second annual Change InSight report. I want to thank everyone who's in attendance this morning in Chicago and to those across the country who are joining us virtually. Change InSight began as an idea in Chicago not even 2 years ago as a means to uncover hidden needs for at-risk communities, thereby providing high-quality, actual data for nonprofits like CASTLE, elected leaders, funders, and health leaders. For years, CASTLE has surveyed our clients so that we can gather data and make data-informed decisions to serve our community as effective as possible. One example of how we used data was early during the COVID-19 pandemic. CASTLE's team identified that our seniors were struggling with food insecurity, so we launched the Senior Meals Program to provide free, culturally appropriate meals to seniors. We quickly saw high demand, and we were able to receive a generous support of $1 million of federal grant to increase the program's reach, ultimately growing the program to serve culturally appropriate hot meals to more than 600 seniors each day. As we continue to operate the successful program and assess our clients' needs, we were surprised to discover through our data that food insecurity was severely impacting people of many ages in our service area, not just seniors. Thanks to the insight our data offered, we are now in the process of ramping up our senior meals program into a full-fledged food and nutrition program. We currently serve 10,500 meals per week, over 500,000 meals each year to seniors, school children, and others, and we are continuing to expand our capacity to meet needs across all age groups. This brings me back to Change InSight. When organizations like CASTLE and our partners are equipped with high-quality data about our community's needs, life-changing impact happens. Our community experiences the power of data, and we wanted to extend this benefit to empower other organizations like us to uplift all AA, NHPI, and other underserved communities. I'm excited to say that with the launch of the second annual report, Change InSight is now a national footprint, one that will create moving stories of service and impact across the country. Without the help of our incredible partner organization, Change InSight would not be at this important juncture. I would like to personally thank Opnagar, Hano Family Alliance, the Alliance of Filipinos for Immigrant Rights and Empowerment Chicago, our team at CASTLE, and the Indo-American Center, all of whom participated in both the inaugural Change InSight study and this year's report. Without these organizations, their leadership, their staff, their communities, Change InSight would not have been possible. And of course, thank you to our new Midwest partners, the Japanese American Service Committee and the Refugee Center in Urbana-Champaign. I also like to thank our 11 other partnering organizations across the country who participated. Your efforts are already making an impact at-risk communities. With this, thank you to everyone in attendance today. We have with us Change InSight partners, nonprofit executives, elected officials, dedicated funders, and healthcare providers, too many to name, but an impressive roster of upstanding individuals, all showing their commitment to improving equity for the AA and HPI and other underrepresented communities. Change InSight is a first of its kind community-based data platform that quantifies and identifies health challenges facing at-risk communities. To this, our partner nonprofits survey the communities about factors such as housing, employment, transportation, educational attainment, English proficiency, and much more. We then analyze the data gathered through these surveys to create community-specific risk profiles and gain a greater understanding of the people we serve. Access to better data empowers us to be better servants and advocates for our communities, and it helps elected leaders, healthcare professionals, and philanthropists more clearly see where solutions are most needed. Better data is a critical need for at-risk community, especially for A and NHPI population. Now, unfortunately, many traditional data sources, like the US Census, frequently lump all the nation's 50 plus AA and HPI communities into one umbrella Asian American category. This is a dangerous practice that renders individual communities' needs invisible. It's important to recognize and understand that a given city's Chinese community will have far different challenges than another city's Korean community. But it's hard to prove that without community data to identify and define the scope and depth of these challenges. Change InSight is changing that. We are a network of 19 community-based organizations from coast to coast, representing more than 30 AA and HPI ethnic groups, and we are rapidly growing. I know our findings will lead to positive change for the communities we serve. We are documenting the needs of the most vulnerable members of our communities, empowering them and our partners with the proof points they need to access resources. This year, we found urgent needs facing different AA and HPI communities. As you may expect, these needs look very different depending on the specific community and location. 69% of Bangladeshis Change InSight respondents in the New York area live in poverty. 69%. 57% of Chinese respondents in the Midwest have less than a high school education. Across the country, 25% of Korean respondents, and that's 1 in 4, are socially isolated. These findings can be really hard to stomach, but they are important to illuminate, and they show us there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Change InSight is new, but we are already providing a voice to the voiceless and making an impact. We are showing what AA and HPI and other underrepresented communities can do when we work together. To talk about this data, to talk about how this data can make a change, but not just within our organization, but with our elected leaders as well, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy. Congressman, please, would you like to have a few words? Yep.
Good Good morning. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Paul. And no problem with the name. When I first ran for office, I said, "Hi, my name is Raja Krishnamurthy." And in Chicago, the person looked right back at me and said, "Roger Christian Murphy. Very nice to meet you." And he said, I didn't know the Irish made it to India. And so, in any case, wonderful to be with you. I want to observe those 3 rules of public speaking: be short, be sweet, and be gone. And so 3 points I want to make. First of all, can you give a big round of applause to Castle and Paul and Bonnie and everybody on the staff of Castle for organizing today's event. They do so much for the community, not just Chinese Americans, but they do so much for the broader community. And for that, I'm very grateful, as is everybody here. Secondly, I want to give a big shout out to all the staff and everybody who works at Change InSight. Give them a big round of applause. So here, I just want to quote the famous quality control guru named Edward Demings. He said, "In God we trust, and for all others we require data." And that's exactly what Change InSight was trying to address, which is there's just a dearth of data. There's a scarcity of disaggregated data by community for each of the 50 AA NHPI communities that make up the mosaic of Asian Americans. Am I right about that? And I see my good friend Alderman Lee, my good friend State Representative Ma, and they know that for policymakers, they need disaggregated data in order to make decisions about resources, whether it's at the federal level, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the city level, or at any level. And so that's why what Change InSight is doing, which is providing a national data platform for different community organizations to each be able to gather and to enter data, is so important. So let me just transition to my third and final point. It's a little bit longer, but the reason why we need this data is because the AA-NHPI community is growing by leaps and bounds in this country. It is the fastest growing ethnic minority group in the country and in our state and in our city. There are 22 million members of the AA-NHPI community. That's roughly 7% of the country. That number is roughly double what it was just a couple decades ago, and that number is going to be double in just a couple decades from now. So when you have problems with disaggregation, or you have any problems with the direction of resources to the community, it only amplifies, it only gets bigger. Those problems get worse as the community numbers grow. And so you can even see those problems manifest themselves today. Out of $100 in charitable giving and charitable foundation giving that is issued every year, 20 cents goes to the AA-NHPI community. Not $20, not $2, 20 cents. And so that tells you kind of the magnitude of the disparity between the need and the resources available to the need. You can also see that even in representation. So today I told you there's roughly 7% of the country that's AA-NHPI, while in Congress that number is 3%. So 3% of Congress is AA-NHPI, whereas 7% of the country is AA-NHPI. So you see that not only are the resources less for the community, not only is there not disaggregated data, but our voice is disproportionately less. And so we have to change all of that. And so that's what today is all about. Change InSight is making it possible for change to be in sight for the community as a whole and for people who really need the resources to be able to deal with poverty, to deal with isolation, to deal with healthcare disparities, to deal with all the different issues that you see affect our daily lives. So with that, I just want to say thank you to Paul, thank you to Castle, thank you to Change InSight for everything that you do. Whatever you need from me, I will be there for you. And I can say, despite the fact that it is very cold and typical Chicago wintry conditions outside, it's very warm inside. And I'm not just talking about the temperature. I'm also talking about the good feelings of collaboration, the good feelings of unity in purpose, and I can't wait to do whatever I can in Washington, D.C. to further your cause as we go forward. So thank you so much, and God bless. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Congressman. I know he has an extremely busy schedule. Thank you. Up next, we have our friend and leader who is here to provide some special words, State Representative Teresa Ma.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Teresa Ma. I'm excited to be here today to celebrate the incredible efforts of Castle and all the other organizations that contributed to this Change InSight report that's being released today. As elected officials, we strive to improve the well-being of our constituents and neighbors, all the people we represent. But in order to do that, we need to understand the communities as deeply as possible. We need data that shows us where our efforts are most needed. And the sad fact is that we just don't have enough data about the ANHPI community. So, this lack of data creates additional barriers to advancing equity and understanding for all the people we represent. The census data is great, but there's so many data points beyond what's provided in that, in that data set that we could really use, and especially disaggregated data that really drills down into the details of Asian American ANHPI communities. So Change InSight is monumentally important because it's surveying the most at-risk members of the ANHPI and other underrepresented communities. It ensures that elected officials are making important policy and funding decisions, and that we can be certain that our efforts will have the greatest possible impact. So I'm grateful and proud that Change InSight started right here in Chicago, in my district, led by Paul and Castle, and now joined by all the collaborating nonprofit organizations. As the first Asian American elected to the General Assembly, co-chair of the Asian American Legislative Caucus, and the daughter of immigrants, I'm excited to see Change InSight continue to provide a voice for ANHPI communities across the country. And so I'm extremely excited to be here for this, and now I'd like to invite my friend, Alderwoman Nicole Lee, the first Asian American woman in our Chicago City Council, to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, State Representative Ma. She's also my state representative. It's a real honor to be here with you all today, and to be here for the second of these press conferences. I was sitting in a Finance Committee meeting yesterday, and we had a public hearing about CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. We were talking a lot about municipal deposits. We had some presentations from some experts on housing. The Woodstock Institute was one of them. Last year at this same briefing, I'm always on the hunt. I'm always on the hunt for where Asian American data isn't showing up, right? So we see a lot about Black and brown communities, and where I don't see any information about Asians, I ask the question. So I asked the question last year of the Woodstock Institute. I said, what do we know about lending to Asian Americans? And his response was unsatisfactory to him and me. And he said, you know, we're going to work on that. We're going to take a look at that. There's so much data, and it's not disaggregated. And this term disaggregation, you're going to hear a lot. This is what is so key for our community in this conversation about data. So when he came back this year, and unfortunately, I was busted out. I was not in the room when he paid me this compliment. They're about 99% of the way there in terms of completing this, this data study. But he said to me, and this was specifically about home lending to the Asian American population and how it's disaggregated, that Chinese and South Indians have the lion's share of the approvals, the mortgage originations. But to look at Korean, Vietnamese, Southeast, and other Southeast Asians, it tells a very different story. And I lead with that because this is why this work is so important. It is absolutely vital that we continue to have data like this for us as elected officials, for funders, and to make the case for the resources that are needed in our community, and that we are not monolithic. We are very different even within ethnic groups ourselves. This data-driven information is absolutely critical to the work across lots of streams here. I'm just going to go through I didn't have prepared remarks, just some bullets here. I want to do a specific shout out to Castle. I know every single one of us has done this here. Castle's very special to me. I lived across the street from the original Castle until they moved away and grew. Bernie Wong was someone that was very familiar to me. We went to the same church, and it's been incredible to watch the journey of this organization and how it's grown, and how it has adapted and is really a leader, a national leader on this. You know, Change InSight was born out of Castle, and really the need for this data, and Paul and team saw the value in this, and now everybody's going to benefit from it. I also want to give Castle a shout out about, you talked about food insecurity earlier. One of the things that's not very well known is that Castle, the height of the migrant crisis, some would argue we're still there, but over the summer and in the spring, while there were several hundred migrants living in front of the 9th District Police Station in my ward, I called Paul at Castle, and I said, they're not getting enough food. Can Castle do something? And without hesitation, they said, yes, we can absolutely help with that. And they provided thousands of meals for the migrants that were there. Healthy meals. We're not talking about hot dogs, which some other groups were providing. We're talking a hot meal with nutritionally balanced, with vegetables, with milk, and all of those things that are so important. And this data tells us where the needs are in our community and not just the Asian American community. So I really, more than anything, want to thank you for the work that you're doing. You'll continue to have my support. I appreciate all that you're doing to empower us to help others as well. So thank you very much and congratulations. And with that, I'm going to introduce, you're going to do it? Okay.
Well, thank you, Alderman Lee. Thank you for the kind remarks. And now I want to introduce our friend and our senator, State Senator Selena Villanueva.
So I came here to nerd out. Like, that's actually my intention. I didn't actually know I was speaking, so you're going to get something very short and sweet. Having been a former immigrant rights organizer that have worked with several of the organizations that form part of this incredible group, I think we all know the importance of data and how crucial it is to tell our stories, but also to talk about the impact that policies have on our communities, that the lack of resources have on our communities. We know that in terms of when we talk about philanthropic dollars not coming into our communities, when we talk about, again, the lack of resources, governmental resources. So when you're able to make sure that the people that are actually getting and gathering the data are the same people who are coming from the same communities that can then tell the story of the data, it's so really crucial. We know this, why? Because we know that the more that we're able to base policy, base decision-making on data-informed, ideas, the better it is. the more impactful it is. The more we actually get to see that life expectancy actually moves up and that people are living longer and healthier and that are actually able to get the resources, the healthcare resources, the governmental resources, the community resources that they need in order to live good and quality lives, not just, survive throughout the years. And so I'm really happy here to nerd out with all of you guys because, again, I think it's always really crucial when we have communities that are obviously in need, but because of the myths that the rest of the world like to kind of tell us about ourselves, we often get overlooked. And so I'm proud to be here today. I'm proud to nerd out with you guys, but I'm also really happy to learn more about what the different needs are. I think Alderwoman Lee and Representative Ma both said this. Our communities are not monoliths. So what's happening in the Southeast Asian community is not necessarily what's happening in the Chinese community or the Vietnamese community or the Cambodian community. We have different stories that brought us to this country and different impacts that play a huge role in our lives and the further development of our communities here in this country. And so the more that we're able to know about those stories and actually put them together and show in a data-based type of format to say, hey, this is what's happening, the stronger the likelihood that we are actually going to help people. And so I want to thank you all for your commitment to the work, for continuing to do this because it's so, so important. But also, I'm very excited about what's to come from this. So thank you very much.
And now I want to introduce our amazing leader, board chair, Bonnie Fong.
Thanks so much, Paul, and special thank you to Senator Villanueva, Representative Ma, and Alderwoman Lee for your leadership and really for your dedication to the AA and HPI community, so thank you. So I'm Bonnie Fong, I Castle's board chair, and I am so incredibly proud that Castle is part of this exciting and important initiative. Paul mentioned earlier that Castle used data to evaluate and evolve our food and nutrition program and how that we are now feeding people of all ages. We're incredibly proud of how Castle has used our findings to make an impact, but I can confidently say that we are not the only ones. So what value does Change InSight bring our partners? How is data changing the way they work with their communities or how they reflect on and assess their own organization's impact? To discuss the findings more in depth, I'd like to invite some partners to join me up here for a panel discussion. Mike Takata, CEO of the Japanese American Service Committee, a new partner for us this year. Eva Mariri, Community Engagement Coordinator of Apnagar, and Yunji Lee, Director of Healthy Aging at the Hanu Family Alliance. Please come up and join. All the mics on? Okay, great. Thank you so much for being with us here today. First, I'd like to invite you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your organization and the communities that you serve. Eva, do you want to start?
Hello, everyone. My name is Eva Mariri. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at Apnagar. I'm representing my Deputy Director, Zishan Ali, and I'm happy that I'm also accompanied by our Outreach Manager, Anuj Nagpal. Apnagar is an Urdu word which means our home, and we empower survivors, we engage communities, we elevate the issue of gender violence so that we can elevate gender justice. For the past 33 years, we have been engaging communities by offering culturally comprehensive services. We have served over 100,000 survivors, and this has been in the area of legal, advocacy, medical, outreach services, housing, and engaging in policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yunji Lee. I'm a Director of Healthy Aging at Hanu Family Alliance. Thank you for inviting us to speak at this event. And also, Hanu Family Alliance started out as a Korean American Senior Center in Chicago in 1987, and now we have grown and we have 3 offices, one in Albany Park, where we originally started, one in Mount Prospect in the suburb, and one in Lincolnshire in the Lake County. We offer diverse services, wide range of services, including congregate meal program, home care, home delivered meals. We are one of the only agencies in the area that serves Korean cuisine to the homebound seniors. Also mental health, community health programs, public benefits, case management, and many others as well, including the immigration and legal services. I'm very glad to be here to talk about how we participated in the Change InSight and how the data was able to make us data-informed decisions for our community.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Takata. I'm the CEO of the Japanese American Service Committee. We are a 78-year-old organization originally founded to help the resettlement of Japanese Americans after World War II. Many of them, over 120,000, were incarcerated during the war. And post-war, there was a mass migration eastward, and Chicago became one of the largest landing spots for this community. And so our original goal was to help with the resettlement. And over time, we have grown into becoming a social service provider aimed servicing at older adults primarily, all populations, primarily Asian American, but we have an African American clientele, Latinx, and poor white populations that need services to keep their elders independent as long as possible. We're also a cultural organization that provides programming for anyone interested in the Japanese culture, the Japanese American heritage, and we are thrilled to be first-year participants in this project and looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thank you. Let me start by asking each of you, how has Change InSight impacted your organization and communities? Mike, do you want to start?
Sure. As a first-time participant, we're still trying to get involved or, to get really deep into the process. What's wonderful from my standpoint is, as a social service provider, we're asking our clients and our prospective clients many of these types of questions, right? And now, with the tools of Change InSight, we're actually able to go even deeper, as well as be more organized about retaining and using this information. So we're very, very excited about the prospects. We've had a great relationship with the team, Castle, Change InSight, and so we're really looking forward to everything that we've been hearing about, the aspirations of this work, and then to be a contributor to the data.
Thank you. Wenji?
We participated in this program for 2 rounds. So the data we gathered from the first round did give us a valuable information to make an informed decision. One of the the results was that in the first round, we were able to see how the stress level and social isolation was worsened by the pandemic in the Korean community. And in the second round, at the same time, when we started giving more mental health and social community support to the population, in the second round, we actually saw that the stress level has gone down, social isolation has gone down, or people were more aware about the need to tackle social isolation. And another big thing was that we could see a significant decrease in the stigma for the mental health, which is a big thing in the Asian community. So that was a very significant impact of participating in Change InSight.
Thank you. Eva, anything to add?
Yes, attesting to what they're saying, the fact that we've been partners now for the second time, and this is the third time, it's a testament on its own of the value that we have found in participating and partnering with you in Change InSight. One of the things is in disaggregated data, which my fellow panelist here, she has attributed to. And with this, we've found it was just not in the process of participating in Change InSight and conducting the surveys, but also through this, it's what we got out of it. So the programming has also helped us as we continued engaging with communities as we were partaking in the surveys. It helped us expand our outreach services because it informed us. The other thing is that it increased and strengthened our existing partnerships with other organizations, community-based organizations. We collaborated with them, and because of this, we saw an increase in the number of participants who partook in the survey. Then we were also able to make more informed decisions that through the disaggregated data in terms of our child services and being able to offer and the need for trauma-informed care for the children who accompany the domestic violence survivors.
Great, thank you. One of the things, and Gia, you mentioned mental health and some other statistics and data that you learned. Was there anything surprising about the findings that Change InSight uncovered? Or was there any data that quantified for you kind of things that you had suspected about your communities that you didn't have any data for before? Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Yes, there was, it confirmed, and also yes, we found some new in terms of if we were to compare in the past. And one of them I would like to draw your attention to is one of the statistics, it's one of the things which has been highlighted in the larger report as the language, limited English proficiency as a risk or as a barrier in terms of accessing health. And this, like, in our particular research, when we went into the communities, we found that 42% of the participants were comfortable in speaking in English. But what was important to note is that 58% of the people collectively talked about being able to, they would like services in their own ethnic languages. Now, what does that data tell us? It tells us that it is highly important for us to provide professional language interpreters and to increase funding for these services, and so that organizations such as ours are able to assist not only the survivors but other program participants who they serve. Now, what was new to us, and you mentioned it from Hanno, was, and it's correlating also with the national, was the need for mental health services. Now, sorry, allow me to put this down. It was the need for mental health services, and it's an urgent need. And how, beyond the data, they are real human stories. And one of them, as we were conducting our survey, was a Korean-American domestic violence survivor who came. And as we were partaking the service, through what the survey allows us, within the parameters of having an in-depth conversation with her, she was able to relay her story. And one of the things which we realized is that there were feelings of isolation, and she had been going through mental health challenges. And COVID did not help this, and all of you who are present here are aware of what, it only exacerbated those challenges. Luckily for us, on that day, we were together with our collaborating partners, and we were able to link her directly with the services that she needed. But she's one. In our surveys, it told us that 74% of our participants experience one form of stress or the other, in varying capacities. One who made it to be able to be attended to. So she is speaking for the majority who may not be able to reach there. And my being here today is an honor, and I'm excited that we have such a diverse audience today. And I'm speaking to the power that each and every one of us has to be able to enable for mental health services to be available to those who may not be able to afford them. I think those are the two, in case I remember anything.
Thank you.
Yes.
NG, anything surprising or newly quantifiable for you?
Well, we did find a lot of surprising data points through participating in Change Insight. One of the thing was being able to look at the disaggregate data that represent the low-income first-generation Korean Americans in Midwest, which is a very specific community, which is not very well, maybe not very well captured in the big data, U.S. Census or the aggregate data, was that a lot of people were actually experiencing more social isolation than we thought. Despite the myth about the big immigrant community, Asians taking care of older generations, a lot more Korean first generation elders are living by themselves, or just like one person or two person households in the senior community. And we also saw that there was a lot more social isolation because a lot of them relied on faith communities like churches, temples for social network too. So when those kind of closed down and switched to the remote services during the pandemic, their stress level went up and their isolation was greater. One change though was that they were aware of it. They were motivated to deal with it. And that's why we were able to push out more mental health programs. We were able to check in with them more frequently following the Change Insight. And we also found out that there was less stigma about the mental health, as I said, which was very surprising because stigma is all about the Asian community and mental health, right? People were saying, okay, I'm okay, actually want to learn about it. But a lot of programs out there, like mindfulness, meditation, emotional regulation, support groups for people taking care of their children with a mental illness, health issues, they are all offered in English and maybe in Spanish. And sometimes they do offer translation, but it's never the same when you offer the translation. So that was a surprising discovery. And we were able to argue that we need more funding. We need service providers who can speak the language, know the culture. And we want to create programs that are able to address these needs that are identified by Change Insight.
Thank you. Mike, as a newer partner, any observations?
So we're still learning to walk in this wonderful pool that you all are in and have afforded us the opportunity. So this year has really been about just getting the staff to be open-minded, to know this isn't additional work. This is actually going to help us all be more effective in the work that we're doing. And so we were just trying to get the culture and incorporate the concepts in the day-to-day. And so we're looking forward to next year at this time, having some really, hopefully, great aha moments from, going through the routine.
Great, thank you. The panel started talking about how you started to use the data. Can you tell me how else you plan to use the data going forward? Or how else you've used the data?
So moving forward, we were so inspired with the disaggregated data and how it was informing our programming that we have decided to embed those questions in what will be our yearly APNAGA Community Needs Assessment data. And this we will be conducting it simultaneously alongside the Change Insight. This will help us to serve the emergent needs that will be coming up in the communities, be more responsive and enhance our services more than, And the other thing is we listened to the youth who came and lent us their voices, either as they were taking part in the surveys. And we really look forward to expanding our youth-based services so that we can be able to cater to them. And this will be informed continuously on a yearly basis by also the data which we'll be getting. We will be modifying as we move forward. Yeah. And one thing which we found as we were conducting the data to attest to your point in terms of language access is that towards the end, what we did, we realized the partaking of the surveys, it was a bit, so what we did was that we translated our questionnaires, and oh, what an amazing change that made, because even though we could not speak the same language, as soon as people saw that, you have taken the time to translate it in my language, it gave a different story, and they took their time to try and fill that in. And also just collaborating with different partners who would also help us in, giving interpretations for the languages that we were not able to on site. That really helped a lot. So moving forward, that would be a good thing.
Great, thank you. Unji, how else have you used the data?
We use the data in many ways. One of the first things was that the HR decision. For example, we hired 2 more community health coordinators who can combine physical health, healthy, lifestyle with the mental health, cognitive health aspect programs. So those staff will be focusing on running those programs and also creating more in-person community events, not just necessarily in Albany Park or the Mount Prospect area, trying to also reach Lake County, where a lot of younger seniors, senior Koreans have settled. So that was influenced, we were able to make that decision based on the data and the change in site. And also, again, more diversified mental health programs, and perhaps not just even like program dedicated to mental health. We were able to embed mental health elements in other programs that we have, cognitive health or specialist lectures or congregate meal program. We were able to do that as well to expose people to more in-depth topics about the mental health. And we were also, this is not really about the quantitative data, but then we also found out that change in site itself was a great training for the staff as well. How to talk to people, how to build relationship, how to approach sensitive topics. We were also able to incorporate some of the learnings into our intake procedure as well. So, yes.
Wow, really impactful. Thank you. Mike, anything to add in terms of how you plan and hope to use the data?
Yeah, for the service committee, we're very excited about 2024 because in the fourth quarter of this year, we will be moving into a new facility in the West Ridge neighborhood just north of Lincoln Square, not there far from our Uptown location. We sold Uptown, we bought in this property on Lincoln Avenue. We're super excited about the expansion. Just as an order of magnitude, we're going to be able to increase the census of our adult day service program 3 times. We will be impacting more people. This tool is going to help us inform some of the new programming ideas that I'm hearing and I'm seeing as I'm reading through the data. It just hit me as like, I'm going to have this material for my board meetings and my conversation with my boards as we start to talk about new ways to grow and why this is even on the radar, and to have this data and to have these colleagues that we work side by side with on a regular basis is going to be huge. So very, very excited about the coming year.
Well, thank you. And really, thank you to each of you for being such an integral part of Change InSight and for providing your insights today. So it's certainly one thing to talk about the power of data at a high level, but it's another thing entirely to speak directly with our partners to hear how the data is making an impact. So thank you. Thank you. So now we can all see why Change InSight is important. However, a project like this simply cannot happen without the philanthropists and grant writers who choose to support this vision. one of the first people to see the potential in Change InSight and provide us with the support we needed to launch was Scott McClellan, who made this possible through the work of the Julian Grace Foundation. Scott, please join me up front to talk a little bit about how you decided to support Change InSight from the very beginning.
Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that introduction. I want to thank all of the partners who spoke today and shared their experiences with Change InSight. I think it's very, very inspiring work that you are doing, and to see that Change InSight has actually helped you move the needle in the spaces in which you work. Again, as Bonnie said, my name is Scott McClellan. I'm the Executive Director with Julian Grace Foundation, and we are a private family foundation that focuses on 5 core areas, which is health, education, immigration and human rights, cultural preservation, and environmental justice. And as philanthropists, you know, our biggest goal is to ensure that our dollars are making a difference, that they are impacting the work that you are doing on your constituents. And typically what happens is people share stories with us, right, and tell us all the good stuff that you're doing, but it's not the same as having the data, right? And the data truly digs deep on what the issues are and how you are able to go about in addressing those issues. But one thing that I know in my work here is that the AA and HPI community is underrepresented in the philanthropic space, right? Typically you hear about Black and brown communities, socioeconomic populations, but this community here is one that really goes under the radar. And as a philanthropist, I can speak to that and say this is a population that I don't hear much about, not until coming into this space working with Castle and the Change InSight program. Funders may see statistics about the AA and HP program demographic as one monolithic category that could lead to false beliefs, right? But they do not face significant challenges. This is one of the harmful effects of the model minority myth. And as you can see, like on the board right here, it talks about the median household income as a whole. And we can sit and say, okay, well, that's not too bad. But when you start breaking it down into the other demographic or different populations within the entire group, we can see that that is not accurate. Therefore, we have to focus a little deeper on where our dollars are going. So we know that the individual communities need help. And the only way we're going to do that is taking the aggregated data and de-aggregate it to be able to tell that story. I believe Change InSight is revolutionary because it will help equip nonprofits and funders on how to really address the needs that are out there. And it will help health leaders, politicians, policymakers to be able to make change in this world. I'm excited about being a funder for this project in our second year, simply because once Paul and your team get this really figured out, we can then take this model and bring it to other communities to really have a deep, deep impact in ensuring that our dollars are making a change in this world. My goal is not only to continue to support this, but also educate other philanthropists, other foundations to get behind this type of initiative, so that way we can change the world that we live in. So with that, I want to thank you all for having me be a part of this and sharing our experiences with you. And Paul, thank you.
Scott's really tall. Just want to say again, Scott, thank you for your continuous support and Change InSight and really, all of our communities and the partners that we serve together across the country. Also, I'd like to thank Impact House and, of course, Julian Grace Foundation for hosting us today. And I know I can really speak for all Change InSight partners when I say we appreciate your hospitality and willingness to provide a platform for this really important cause. So thank you again. You know, what we have discussed this morning is really just scratches the surface of what we found in this year's Change Insight report. Our partners surveyed nearly 6,000 individuals across the country, representing 30 different AA and HBI populations. So, you know, I want to reassure you, there's so much more for us to learn. The full report, titled Community Counts, is available at www.changeinsight.org in English, Simplified Chinese, Hindi, Urdu, Korean, Bengali, and in Bengali. And also I want to encourage everyone to grab a limited number of printed copies here today. There is so much for us to dive into, for us to look at the data, to share the data, and to discuss about the needs and resources for all AA and HPI community. Thank you for Change Insight partner organizations, the partners who spoke today. You know, thank you for our leaders in the community, our partners who are elected officials, our funders, and other supporters, and really the individuals who shared their life experience with this initiative. And so with that, I want to open up for questions to everyone. But before we do that, I was told, please, as you're on the way out, there's plenty of food. So grab a dessert, some bakery, some coffee as you're walking out. But I'm here to take any questions, and I'm most likely, if I need help with the data stuff, probably ask the Castle team to help me answer questions too. Any questions? Oh, Dr. Hong Lu. I'm sorry, Brandy. Yeah, Dr. Hong Lu, Executive Director for MAHA in Chinatown, has asked that if we have data that is within different API communities that we can compare to health data, mental health data, I imagine, right, Dr. Lu? I think what we need to do is for all of you to is encourage to look into InSight, the report, Change Insight report. If you're a partnering organization, we actually allow you to have access to look at your raw data that you can compare year to year. But I would like to see if I can add, or do we have an InSight leader here or Change Insight who can answer that more specific? David Lee, can you come up here real quickly? Thank you. These are our leaders who can answer these questions. David?
Thank you, Dr. Liu. Apologies, my voice sounds like a frog. I don't usually sound like this, but to answer your question, part of the work of why we're doing this is because it doesn't exist. So kind of when you ask about comparative data for communities, this is part of why we do what we do. In a lot of ways, I think it's not to say that there isn't data. There's not enough to say that the data doesn't exist or to say that there's no solution, and that's really pessimistic and really sad. But we're doing something about it. And so starting small, starting with each community, we can then move forward and encourage other communities to uplift what data is available to the public.
David, don't go. Please don't go. And David really does have a nice voice, everyone. But really, David is saying is there's a sheer lack of data, especially in mental health. And many of us, we've been using, and David and I actually had a conversation before, especially in mental health when it comes to young teenagers and teens, who the API community has the highest suicide rate in the country. and simply we don't have enough data to support that. So we can break that up, not just in the Chinese community, in the Japanese community, and all API and HPI community. We can do something about that. But great question, Dr. Liu. We had another question.
Hi. Oh, my voice only sounded like yours for a second. I don't know what happened there. I'm just asking this question because I work for the 11th Ward Automatic Office, and we get sort of a lot of people come through our office who might need mental health services, but struggle with, number one, the stigma that's been identified, but number two, when they're connected with a service provider, they find that the service provided doesn't have perhaps the linguistic or cultural competency that's required to help navigate a certain mental health challenge. And so might you be able to point us to some resources or movement towards creating resources towards addressing this concern?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and thank you so much. Actually, I was at a national conference in early May of last year, and I was on a panel, and it was actually on mental health for well-being. And there is actually a shortage of Asian American mental health therapists and professionals across the country. There is no strategy as such yet to have building a pipeline to have the next generation. So it's just not in Chicago or 11th Ward or in the state of Illinois, it's across the country. And so there are organizations that are working with institutions like the university, public health departments, especially, for example, the state of California, who are building within their organizations how to train, coach, mentor, and certify their own employees, right, to be the next level of linguistic appropriate, culturally appropriate professionals. So just to answer that, it's very challenging right now. There are within our own community, in the Bridgeport Armour Square community, of course, with Dr. Hong Lu's organization, Maha, Castle. I think what we're forgetting, though, is that when there is a lack of resource or when there is a lack of staffing, how can organizations come together, right, and really sit down and think about both combining resources so that we can amplify our impact in a very different way that's more innovative and creative? Because when we see our clients, when they come in, they're already challenged already. They're already struggling. And so sometimes not one organization can do it all. And no matter how big we are, we're a big organization, very complex and comprehensive. We also have challenges too, and that's a very honest answer.
Just to answer that question a little bit also, Change InSight, sorry, I'm Josh Samuels, I'm one of the Change InSight team. And thank you. So Change InSight, you might think it's just about data, but it's not. I didn't catch your name. You mentioned stigma, and stigma is one of the biggest problems that we have in getting good data. We, in our work with the Change InSight partners, we discovered that there were many different stigmas. Some communities face stigma about education. They don't want to talk about their education level. Others face stigma over mental health or whether a person is actually supported by their extended family can be a big stigma in certain communities. So one of the other points about Change InSight that goes beyond data is that we work with our partners on interviewing skills so that they learn how to empathically listen and speak to each person, which that empowers the clients. If we empower the clients to share their own story and we listen to them, then we can get even more data from them. And this is another one of the fruits of this program. And I only mention it because we do love the data. We're the data team, but it's not just data.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. And Josh Samos is part of the Change InSight team, and with David and so many of our team members, They actually fly around the country on Castle's dime to train, educate organization coast to coast how to ask the empathic, inquiry questions in an appropriate way that Josh mentioned to empower the clients to be fully honest and to provide the answers so that we can have this rich data. One thing that we also forgot to mention, I'm going to kick back to your question, is that Change Insight is about data, and Josh is right, but it's not all about data. It allows and empowers other organizations to come together to do one thing, and that's to create action. And that's really important. So if you're part of this coalition of change, right, we're asking organization, once you have the information, it's really to do something about it, right? And because your community, right, is telling you their needs. And so as leaders, with Mike and with, I see Mike, and then I saw Shobana, who is here with Safri, she had to go. They are now pivoting based on their community's needs. And as a funder with Joy and Grace, when they receive that, and they know their dollars really go the long way. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Oh. We have a mic for you.
I think highly about this initiative because 20 years ago, Asian data is other. So I see this is really powerful to see disaggregated data based on, start from grassroots organizations. This is speak a lot of things in here about empower and increase the capacity of a community-based organization to collect data through their services. And it should be in the habit for nonprofit organizations. A lot of time we work with clients who need our help, but overlook the data because data really do the talk. We see how things emerge from the data. We talk about mental health stigma, talk about the access to care. This is the major themes across many nonprofit organizations who collect data. So I really think that's a great start. That Castle did a great job to lead this efforts. One thing I like, I think the how to transform the data to action is important. You talk of mental health, but also access to care. Workforce development is important. A lot of times we don't have a bilingual professional staff in mental health and healthcare. Those how to develop a dialogue with educational institute and legislators, develop that, and access to care too. We know that people know, now we help people get insured, but now where they go to care. They were so afraid also mental health affordability thing. They go to mental health. I know like HANU, the agency provide senior care. The caregivers and seniors all have a magnitude of mental health issues that affect caretakers, affect their physical health, but they are so hesitant to receive the services because they are afraid the cost. So how to provide affordable care and language access to physical health and dental care. Those kind of things. And also, I like to know whether any organization provide youth services involve this data collection.
That's a great question. First of all, some great points. And I want to mention about a little about some of the comments about cost of living, housing, mental health first, and then talk about the youth. If you really think about that, change always happens. And if you think about our immigrant community across the country, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, our partners in Seattle, Houston, sometimes in communities, gentrification happens, right? And if you're a partner of Change Insight, imagine the power of receiving data on your community almost every 10 to 12 months. As a leader, you can really pivot in a way based on that data because your community is rapidly changing. You need to know how you can put your dollars and where to impact because your community is constantly changing. And that goes to mental health, housing, employment, and so much more. So I just want to share that. Some great points there as our community is constantly changing. The second question you asked, the question you asked is, and we've been asked while we were in New York, we had a press conference in New York too, is can we survey youth? And we're looking into that. And I think that's important because many of our youth struggle, right? They're second, third generations, and some, unfortunately, are stuck in a cycle of poverty, right? And so they want better. And so what are the youth development programs that we can use data for so we can pivot and serve our children in a very different way? As we all know now, the culture is very different for me, especially, many years ago versus serving a youth now. So we're looking into that also. It's a matter of HIPAA issues, a matter about making sure of that their guardians allow us to survey their children too. And also, when you survey children versus adult, also so there's a different way for us to ask the question too. Yep. Any other questions?
Paul, I know we're running tight on time, but can you share just briefly, high level, what year 3 of Change Insight looks like, and then how any interested organizations go about becoming a partner for the next year?
Yeah, so thanks, Brandy. Brandy's our VP of Advancement. Also, I just want to say thank you to the Advancement team, Hawthorne Strategy Partners, their team here, just to thank everyone for their support today here. It's very successful. Yeah, nope. I kept David in his voice here. But if you're interested, and it's just not Chicago, many of us are connected across the country through associations, friends, colleagues. It's a simple to go on www.changeinsight.org, and there's a form that they filled out, and actually our team will get that, and then someone from our team will connect with the organization leader. We provide a virtual presentation, and then our team has the backbone to provide other supports for that. We're actually onboarding organization across the country right now. And so from the rural areas of Lowell, Massachusetts, we just had our first Cambodian organization. The second largest population outside of Cambodia has onboarded, right, Alex? Which is a phenomenal. We are, looking, we have partners in Philadelphia, Boston, Seattle, Los Angeles. We're growing this movement. And so if you want to support this because we want to make change, encourage your friends, your colleagues that in the field to be a part of this. Our goal is to onboard 35 organizations for 2024, and then we want to report back. And ultimately, my goal is 100, but I think the team won't like that. But we want 100 so that we can really get a 100 organizations, very diverse, a good snapshot of the AA and HPI community across the country. So when someone says, what is the health of this population in this city at this time, we can tell them. So that's powerful. Thanks, Randy. Any other question? Thank you, and please do not forget the snacks. Thank you.